Good morning, lovelies. Today we are going to talk about the story of an orphan, Oliver Twist. Please have your books ready open on page 62. We are going to read the text and then explain it. Make sure you read it carefully and check the vocabulary list. Please, let's get started. Oliver Twist. Oliver Twist is one of Charles Dickens' most famous novels, and it tells the tale of a young orphan named Oliver. Oliver endures difficult times in 19th century London, a city full of poverty and crime. The story, like many of Dickens' other novels, paints a vivid picture of life for the working class, especially children, during the industrialization of England. Born in workhouse, Oliver is treated cruelly, and like all other children in similar position, has to work hard at young age. Because of his kind and timid nature, he is often taken advantage of. One of the novel's most famous lines, "Please, sir, I want some more," is said when Oliver is persuaded by other boys in the workhouse to ask for another bowl of soup at dinner time. This is unheard of in the workhouse, and Oliver is punished for saying it. The incident is the first of many new obstacles he has to face. As the story progresses, we come across characters like Fagin, a sly old man who takes care of a group of thieving children, the villain Bill, Sikes, and kind Rose and Nancy. Oliver Twist is a story with many different characters, so it can sometimes get confusing because you have to keep track of so many people. However, Dickens is very skilled at using powerful description of his characters to evoke strong feelings in readers, feelings of sympathy as well as outrage. Because of the characters are so well described, they leave a very memorable image in your mind, and this helps to remember who is who. My favorite character is Mr. Brownlow, a kind and generous man who tries to protect Oliver from the life of poverty and crime that seems inevitable for him. After Oliver is wrongly accused of a robbery, it is Mr. Brownlow who believes he is telling the truth and save him. My only complaint was the pace of the book. At the beginning, it progresses quite slowly and then suddenly seems to speed up, leading to confusion at the end. However, none of these things alter my opinion that is a very fine novel, and it's not difficult to see why novel has such a special place in English literature. Okay, girls. So Oliver Twist, published in 1838, is one of Charles Dickens' best known and well loved works. It's written to describe the cruel ways of treating children back in the 19th century. They were half starved and rarely bathed. So the first paragraph tells us a story, a tale of a young orphan. Orphan means somebody who doesn't have a father or a mom. They died. It tells the story of this orphan. His name is Oliver. He lived a very difficult time in a workhouse at the beginning and then left it to go to another like bad place, which is a farmhouse or an orphanage where orphan lives. He was treated really bad and he had no food and he was rarely bathed. The second paragraph tells us about the nature of Oliver Twist or what kind of character he is. He's a quiet boy, very shy boy who has a very timid nature and he's usually taken advantage of. This boy was one of the other children who were also treated bad and starving. Oliver was kicked out of the workhouse because he asked for food. So one time, Oliver came to the person who is giving them food and asked him for more soup for dinner. And this is when he was kicked out of this workplace. After that, he was in the streets of London, doing nothing, just looking for a place to sleep in. And he met a group of people who help children to work. Of course, by letting them like steal from other people and let's say living in the streets asking for money. At this place, he met different kind of people. Mostly they were bad. The let's say the head of this gang was Mr. Fagin, who would always take the money from the children and give them a little bit of food. Also, you can meet the nice Rose or the kind Rose and Nancy, who were also part of this gang. One person who's called Mr. Brownlow, he was a kind and generous man who tries to protect these children, and one of them is Oliver. Once they accused Oliver of a robbery, that he stole something from Mr. Fagin, and Mr. Brownlow believed Oliver. So the story progresses and shows how back in the 19th century, children were really treated bad and how society and class affected this era. Also, there was a lot of crimes and there was no power for children and there was no limits for justice. As you can see here, I tried to, let's say, make a category for each um, element of a novel. So let's start here. Who's the author of this story? His name is Charles Dickens, the one we talked about the previous time. The genre or a style of this story is a novel. Main elements of a novel are plot, theme, setting, and characters. What's the meaning of plot? Plot is a description of a story. So the plot summary for this story is it talks about an orphan since birth, that he spends most of his childhood at a child farm or an orphanage with too many children and too little food. Eventually, after suffering repeated mistreatment, Oliver runs away and head to London. Of course, even in London, he wasn't treated that well. So, the theme for this story, society and class, how society was really cruel to children and how there was a middle class who were treated very bad. Also, poverty, which is poorness, crime, fate and free will, and the powerlessness of children, the limits of justice. Setting Dickens sets Oliver Twist in early 19th century. Setting means the time and place of this story. So it's in the 19th century, England. Characters, the main characters that our book mentioned was Fagin. Fagin takes in homeless children and trains them to pickpocket for him, also to steal. The second character was Bill Sykes, and he's a professional thief. Also, he works for Fagin. Kind Rose. Kind Rose is a beautiful, compassionate, and forgiving young woman, and she was the main character who shows how women or female were back in the 19th century. Nancy is a young prostitute who works for Fagin. Mr. Brownlow, he was the like the good nature man, the generous man who behaves with compassion and common sense. So to summarize, Oliver Twist is an orphan that is a 9 years old boy who doesn't know his parents where, and he escapes from a workhouse to London land, then meets a pickpocket on the streets of London. From there, he joins a household of boys who are trained to steal from for their master. So Charles Dickens, in the full-length novel Oliver Twist, the major theme is the classic theme of good versus evil. Dickens said that he created Oliver to represent the principle of good surviving child. Also, the novel has characters who are completely bad, like Fagin and Bill Sikes. So, girls, if you have any questions, please let me know, and thank you.